Okay, everybody, today we are going to go over functions. Um, a function is a block of code that runs only when it is called. These can be the functions are extremely handy because you don't have to recode something over and over and over again. Let's just say you're coding a program where you're going to need an exponent function, and you're going to need it 30 times throughout the program. You can reach out to your function where it is already coded for you and keep reusing that same block and code as many times as you want. So to create a function, here's the very basic syntax. Void just means there's not going to be a return value, and then here, this my function thing, you can name it whatever you want. You can name it Fred, you can name it first function, whatever. But void, then the name of the function, and then what it's going to do, the code to be executed. Now calling a function is usually we're going to be putting it in the main. So it's a little bit confusing up here because it's telling you that if your function is followed by the parentheses, then it's going to run, but it's not exactly how it works. The function has to be in between the squiggly lines of the main function in order for it to be called upon. And there could be other variables that play into that, like maybe it might have to hit a key to run it, or you might require a cn to run it, or something like that. But when this function is called upon, it will run, and this is pretty simple here. The function is to simply cout I just got executed. When you run the program, that function is executed right here. So cout I just got executed. You can call on the functions as many times as you'd like, as I said earlier. I mean, I don't know that you'd ever see them right in a row like this, but you'd certainly see different functions being called upon in advanced code, in the very large programs. So that's important to know, that it can be used an infinite number of times, and that's what makes these so handy and so important. Okay, the declaration, the return type, the name of the function, and parentheses, if any. The definition is the body of the function. So the declaration is just this part right here, and then from here to here is the body, what's in between the squiggly lines. It's just a little bit of vocabulary for you there. I should probably make this the first assignment. You tell me what the error is here, and I'll remind you of that later. And by the time we get to later, you should understand it. So basically, okay, let's go ahead and get into parameters. The function here is declared. Here's the main. You're calling the function. This is all very simple. It just kind of looks confusing because of the way they have it spaced with the comments and everything. All right, so parameters. Here's where you have to kind of start paying attention a little bit. So I'm going to go into here. Now, code blocks gives you a little more color coding, as I like to call it, than W3 schools, and it makes it a little less confusing. So I copied this into code blocks already. Well, now what's happening here, I'll run it real quick. Watch there. No, there we go. Here's the 3 first names of the family, and they all have the last name. So actually, let me leave that up so you can keep looking over if you need to. So basically, you're declaring your function, and then the cout is going to be fname and the last name. So the last name never changes in this program. Fname is located right here, and it is declared as a string. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. What makes this fname change clear up here? Fname for first name. Okay, so in our main function, when you call your function, it's just how these things work. What's in between the parentheses replaces this. And this can be called whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be fname for first name or anything, but it is as simple as whatever this is after it has been established that it's a string, an integer, or whatever comes after, what type of variable you're going to be using, string, integer, boolean, whatever, that is what is going to change and get replaced when you run the function and put it in the parentheses down here. Stop and rewind and listen to that 1,000 times if you have to. This will replace whatever is here. Well, if I changed it, it wouldn't work because it wouldn't match here. But either way, that's what will be happening at the code level. So they called the function 3 times with 3 different names, and all 3 of the names were input, and the cout did the first name, the second name, then the third name, along with the last name each time, with the N to go to the next line. Okay, let me go back over to W3 Schools. Okay, we don't need that anymore. Now, the parameters, which were the names, as you can see here, you can also have a default parameter. So if there's not something input right here, this is how you make a default parameter. So if you ran this program, you would have Sweden, India, Norway, because there's nothing specified in between the the parentheses, and then the USA. See how that's working right there? Because there has been a default parameter declared right here. Now, if we do string country, now notice the country's right here. If we just get rid of Norway, let's see what happens. It errors out. Now, why is that? I'm just going to put test. It has to be in quotation marks. Because without, on the third line here, it didn't know what to do because it was calling for a default function and it did not exist. It wasn't up there. So so that's the whole point behind having a default function. If this ends up being blank, what happens? What happens if you just want it to be blank over here? You know what? Never mind I even tried that, because I really don't want to start this lecture over again. Oh, you know what? I forgot the quotes. There it is. Yeah, you still have to have the quotation marks. So the default is just a blank space if you wanted to just show it blank if nothing was input, and something like that. Okay, multiple parameters. Now with multiple parameters, you can't have a default parameter, but you can have your first name and your age. Let's run over this one real quick. So the cout is going to be F name, first name, then the last name, and then the age. Notice the F name is up here, age is up here. F name is a string, age is an integer. And then it's going to end with just the words years old and then a space to go to the next line right here. So on your inputs, you put their name, their age, and this is what pops up. Because it's calling the first name, which, remember, this replaces this, and then you have the comma to tell the program to look at the second function, and that would be the age, 3 years old, and you can see that string right here, and you can see how it appears over here. And I keep forgetting, but these are called parameters. This actually says that right here, parameters. Okay, return values. The void keyword used in the previous example indicates that the function should not return a value. If you want the function to return a value, you can use a data type instead of void and use the return keyword inside of the function. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So look, instead of void my function, you're going to say my function is going to be an integer. And then this is a very simple way of saying it, but return 5 plus x. And the cout is going to be the function, and look, right here, integer x. Remember, This isn't what gets, let me pull one of these real quick. int integer is not what gets replaced. Only what has been declared as an integer gets replaced by what is in the parentheses. See, my function, 3, 3. So 5 plus x is going to return, oh, I still have to close this, and 8. 5 plus 3 equals 8. Okay, we are going to take 5 right there because I'm about at that 10-minute rule. At least I'm pretty sure I am, but I like to take a little break, and I will put the assignment description right after that. Where was that? That was... where did I do that at? I'll find it and put it in the description. See you in a few.